Yes, guys, welcome to the Fantasy Football Fix Game Week 14 live stream. My name is FPL Nacho, and I am delighted to be here chatting all things FPL going into this Game Week 14 deadline. Of course, it is a Saturday morning, depending on where you are in the world, 11 a.m. UK time deadline. So we have a bit of a chilled Friday this evening, which is fantastic because it means we can answer all of your questions without that looming deadline on the horizon during this live stream in particular. So we have got a lot to cover off in this live stream. So it's excellent that you guys have tuned into this one. It is going to be a big one. We've got Haaland injury updates. Going to be covering my team news going into Game Week 14. We're going to be looking at the hot topics. With that World Cup coming up, I think it's really imperative that we are focusing on the next 3 game weeks, as that is all we have to worry about right now. So that's going to be the focus on the particular players that we need to focus on. And then we'll be looking at the predicted points as always alongside the usual fixture chat. So good to see some familiar faces in the chat. Ice Cold Jones, hope you're doing well. Cheekster, as always, hope you're doing well. I'm doing very well myself. It is great that it is Friday. Looking forward to another decent weekend of football. Fingers crossed, a good FPL week. Down boy as well, hope you're doing well. And Monkey Man saying, as he finishes afternoon nap, I would have loved to have had an afternoon nap after the week of work we have had, but the show must go on, and this is always the best part of the week, tuning into the live stream with you guys and answering all of your questions. So first and foremost, it goes without saying, if you are new around here and you do enjoy the live stream, it'll be fantastic if you could hit that subscribe button just to join the community and the channel throughout this season. It'll be fantastic if you do that. And also, if you enjoy the live stream, make sure you do drop a like on it. We always try and hit 50 likes. So if you guys can do that for me, it would be massively appreciated as always. I know you guys always deliver. And hopefully this provides a little bit of value along the way, just to kind of pay back the likes that you guys have been given. That would be fantastic. So I'll dip into a few of the questions. I see we have some in here already. Then we'll come into my team and I will discuss the situation with Haaland and what my current plans are going forward, as I do think that it is a big headache for a lot of managers right now. So Ice Cold Jones is saying, Cucurella or Guy, keep up the good work you do. Thank you very much, Ice Cold Jones. Yes, so Cucurella or Guy, we have very different sort of assets here. Cucurella, a player that has been rotated in and out of the Graham Potter side so far this season, versus a Mark Guy who has been Mr. Consistent in that Crystal Palace team. Now, away against Brighton, I actually think is quite a tricky fixture for Chelsea. So based on this alone, I think I would favour Mark Guy, just because I know that I'm getting 90 minutes with him. And with Cucurella, I don't anticipate him necessarily to play as a left wing back. Playing as a left-sided centre-back kind of negates his attacking potential. Whereas if it was Chilwell versus Guy, I probably would favour Chilwell. But for me, I think I'm going to say Guy as the choice here, just in case you get Cucurella for the last 20 minutes. You might kick yourself if Guy gets that clean sheet at the end of the game there. A few questions about Haaland. We'll cover them off in a minute when I come to my team. And Chris, hope you're doing well, buddy. Obviously, evening your way, so it's excellent to see you tuning in. Mad saying, good evening. 3-week punt, Mitrovic to Darwin. Well, Mads, firstly, selling Mitrovic this week doesn't feel right, I have to say. Even though Darwin has a fantastic home fixture against Leeds, I'd firstly look at your team and say to you, have you got other fires that you need to put out in your team? Or going into Game Week 15, if you could roll your free transfer, would your team look better off with 2 free transfers available to you? Now, Mitrovic versus Darwin Núñez in a straight shootout this game week, I probably would favour Darwin Núñez. I'm anticipating Liverpool to bounce back a little bit off the back of that Nottingham Forest loss. So yes, I like it for a 3-week punt, but I don't think it is a desperate transfer this week, because I think Mitrovic could do very well this game week as well. Right, guys, out and Dev said an interesting one here that I can answer very quickly. Haaland for Alvarez, I would say no to that one. First and foremost, Haaland, even if he doesn't play in Game Week 14, you know you're going to want him back. And Alvarez, we can't even guarantee definitely plays. And he has had his own injury concerns recently. So, no, I don't think that is a move that you should be considering, Dev. So, without further ado, guys, let's take a look at my team going into Game Week 14. Going to cover off the Haaland situation as I am currently a Haaland owner, and also worth noting a Salah owner as well. Yes, it has been painful recently having him in the team. I'm praying, absolutely praying, that he can deliver the goods and make up for, 5 game weeks of pain that he's given us. So let's get into the team, guys, and we can cover off all of those important questions that I can see already coming in the chat. All right. Here we have the fellas ahead of game week 14. So, first and foremost, I'm absolutely delighted with the team going into game week 14. I think I have covered off a lot of the big assets that I would want and a lot of differentials that my rank needs right now. So, just to kind of round up my season so far, 450k in the world. So, I'm not necessarily happy with my rank, but I feel like I've been making good decisions along the way so far this season. And if you've actually seen the gap between 400k, for example, and 100k, it's about 30 points. And when I captained Salah, when Haaland got the hat-trick against Man City, has basically been the difference between me being 450k and around the 100k. Other than that, decision making has been really good from me this season from my own personal perspective. That sounds incredibly big headed, and I do take that back. What I mean by that is I've been more than happy with the decisions that I've made, and whatever outcome happens because the decision that I've made, I've been more than happy with. So, team, I'm so happy with this team. First and foremost, Trent Alexander-Arnold, what an absolute troll he has been so far this season. However, I really think he is a fantastic differential this game week after getting kind of burnt last game week with him not playing against Nottingham Forest, but proved to be an okay thing that they conceded. Cancelo, Trippier. I have no information on Cancelo, it's worth noting, even though he did get taken off in the Champions League fixture. I haven't seen any updates on Cancelo. Obviously, guys in the chat, if you have any more information about that, it'd be fantastic to update the guys here. But the back three, I'm more than happy with. The midfield, I have the Arsenal double up in both Saka and Martinelli. And with their home fixture against Nottingham Forest, I would like to think Arsenal are going to bounce back from that Champions League defeat. Apologies for Arsenal fans, I didn't mean that. Europa League defeat. That wasn't a dig there, that was accidental. Look, I'm more than happy with the double up of the Arsenal midfielders. I brought Saka in last week, hoping he would pay back the loyalty. Didn't deliver, but obviously he has another game week to do so. Zaha, I've seen a lot of people selling Zaha. I don't really think it is the game week to do so. However, there are certain players that kind of buck the trend there. If you're bringing in the likes of Foden or Saka, then yes, I can understand the transfer there. But I've seen others do Zaha to Almiron, for example, and I just don't really think it feels right this game week doing that move. Salah, I'm so happy to have him this game week. I think a lot of managers would not rip up their teams, but if they could build a free hit team, they would definitely have Mo Salah in it. So I'm more than happy to have Mo Salah this game week. And Andreas Pereira, someone that has been just eating up the points on my bench, and I've not been getting him in my team. So I'm more than happy to start him this game week. It's worth noting, I've had a little bit of a debate whether to start Guy or Andreas Pereira, but I think the double up in Palace defence is a little bit too much for me right now. I'm anticipating with Andreas Pereira a tough game against Everton, but seeing him with the set piece duties still, the attacking threat that he is offering and the guaranteed game time in this Fulham team, and also it's worth mentioning Fulham at home have been very impressive. I'm more than happy to start Andreas Pereira over Mark Guy, and if Crystal Palace do keep that clean sheet, first and foremost, I have Gaeta in goal to pick up those points. And secondly, I don't anticipate Mark Guy accumulating massive returns. Maybe he picks up a bonus point, but I will happily just let that happen. I'd rather have the high ceiling that Andreas Pereira is potentially offering. Okay, now for the big bet. Mitrovic, as I've said, I think you definitely hold him right now for this game week. But if you want to go chasing for a Darwin Núñez, I understand that. But just remember, Everton at home, while Everton have been good defensively recently, I still think Mitrovic in any home fixture is fantastic FPL value. So I'm not recommending anyone sell Mitrovic this game week. Now Haaland. Pep Guardiola has basically offered no insight going into game week 14 so far. His press conference basically suggested that he's gotten better off the back of the injury against Dortmund and he will be assessed over the next few hours. Now, read into that what you will, but Personally, he hasn't been ruled out by Pep Guardiola. And as long as Haaland hasn't been ruled out for the game, I think you absolutely start him, because I see two scenarios here. Either Man City bench Haaland, they go 3-0 up against Leicester, and they say to themselves, let Haaland have the week off, we will get him back for the next home game, which is a fantastic fixture against Brentford, I believe. Or Man City are chasing the game, and they throw Haaland on for the last half an hour. I am more than happy to have a half-hour Haaland versus a 90-minute mark guy. Now, of course, we could get the other situation where Haaland is completely rested, not included in the squad at all. Then that is obviously going to throw a bit of a spanner in the work for some people who don't have strength and depth on their bench. For me personally, I'm happy to do that move, but I understand that there are some people out there who have nobody on their bench, and they're in a position where it is a lot of money for a player not to feature. Some people have talked about maybe jumping on Harry Kane for a week and then jumping back off. And while I do think that will pay dividends in the short term, I think we need to understand the value of what free transfers offer in FPL. And you jumping from one asset to the other over this short period, I just don't think is the best use of your free transfers. You're basically booking in a guaranteed transfer for game week 15 and not necessarily anticipating any potential injuries that could happen in your team or potential rotation later down the line. So yes, Haaland to Kane in this game week probably will pay dividends if Haaland is completely rested, of course, but I just don't think it is enough for you to sell Haaland. We need to remember that the value that you've probably accumulated in Haaland means that if you sell him, you're going to have to buy him back at a much higher price. So you need to have money in the bank if you are going to go down that strategy. Now, for those that are clued in on the Twitter community, you will know that last week there were quite a few credible sources that basically released the Liverpool team before the deadline. Now remember, last week, Nottingham Forest versus Liverpool was the Saturday lunchtime kickoff. And we have that exact same situation here with Man City versus Leicester being the lunchtime kickoff. Now, I don't have any accounts to promote here, obviously, but I do think it is worthwhile if you want to try and stay in the know, keep yourself active on Twitter over Saturday morning before the deadline, as we may potentially get some sort of leaks about the Man City team. And again, if we get any credible information that maybe Haaland is benched or completely left out the squad, then we can look at different opportunities for captaincy in our team. Now, captaincy. If we are looking at a different captain for your team, it is obviously going to be completely team dependent. But I think if you have Mo Salah, that is absolutely the route you go for as captaincy. Now, I know he has burnt a lot of managers out there, but the underlying stats are still okay. And the big thing is what I saw in the Champions League recently is hopefully a suggestion for what we're going to see going forward. I think the combination of a front two of Darwin Núñez and Salah is much better than a combination of Firmino and Salah. I just think they complement each other much better, with Firmino being the creative force behind them. If we see that once again against Leeds, I do think that finally we will have our day in the sun, Salah owners, and get some returns there. So for me, Salah is absolutely a consideration as an alternative captain. Outside of that, Harry Kane, of course, a brilliant option. Kevin De Bruyne, an unbelievable captaincy option as well as a differential. And also, of course, Saka. Saka will be a little bit lower down the list just because of that uncertainty on how Arsenal are going to bounce back. But I think we always trust those premium assets. And that is why Kane, Salah and Kevin De Bruyne are going to be right up there as the other considerations outside of Erling Haaland. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. What are your plans with him? Are you going to be waiting until that deadline to get a little bit more information and get a bit of an understanding what is going on? So I'm a little bit aware that I probably haven't made it clear what I am doing with my team. I'll be rolling my free transfer. Going into game week 15 with 2 free transfers to have total flexibility in the side. Now, game week 15, we have a few matchups which are a little bit difficult. We have Arsenal playing against Chelsea, I believe. Arsenal are against Chelsea. Apologies, we've checked this. Yes, okay, so Arsenal against Chelsea. So obviously the double Arsenal midfield isn't the most favourable there. But I think having the 2 free transfers is going to be plenty of flexibility. For example, Liverpool play against Spurs in game week 15. I could go for Salah to Kevin De Bruyne because he has those 2 amazing home fixtures between game week 15 and 16. And then maybe upgrade Mitrovic to someone like Skamaka at West Ham, or even another option available like Calvert-Lewin. Otherwise, another alternative that we could go for in my team in game week 15 is downgrading Mohamed Salah to a Phil Foden and then upgrading Mitrovic to someone like a Harry Kane and going for the 2 premium forward strategy. So plenty to think about, and I really do think that having the 2 free transfers is going to be a lot more flexible with my team. So let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. We're going to jump into the chat, answer a few more questions, and then we're going to dip into 3 game week punts players that I think over the next 3 game weeks are really, really great viable options for your teams. So Yassino saying, will Foden play this game week or is he going to be rested? Unfortunately, I can't predict Pep Guardiola, which is a bit of a problem. However, what I will say is Foden getting rested in the league, played in the Champions League. I would anticipate Phil Foden to play personally. Again, read into that what you will. And because we have the lunchtime kickoff, hopefully we will get some information before the deadline about some sort of team leaks. Tom's put in there in the chat about City_extra. That is a verified account, which is usually very, very accurate with their tweets that they put out. Relo's put in Dalot, Perisic, or Van Dijk. Okay, so I'm going to rule Perisic out of the equation. I think that he is one of those players that could potentially go big in a game week in isolation, but I just can't anticipate his game time. So because of that, I'm going to rule Perisic out. So it's all about what kind of money you want to spend. I think Dalot is one of the best, cheaper defenders available in the market right now for you to go for alongside an Arsenal defender. Man United in the upcoming fixtures have West Ham at home, Aston Villa away, and Fulham away. I would say they're not the best for for defensive assets, but I don't think it's enough for you to be scared off from someone like Dalot. And I think Man United in general are performing much better and look much more defensively sound with the likes of Casemiro protecting that back four. Obviously, though, if you do have the funds available, I do think that Van Dijk is the option to go for. I think the fixtures are solid with Leeds at home, and also in game week 16, Liverpool face against Southampton at home. So I anticipate 2 clean sheets there for Liverpool. And Van Dijk as well, always a threat from set pieces. We saw that against Nottingham Forest, where he should have got a brace at least. So he's always a threat from set pieces, and we know his game time is absolutely locked in. So yeah, it's going to depend on how much money you have available to you there. Greg saying, is it worth taking a -4 to get Arsenal attackers? Would mean removing Zaha or Trent, though. So look, I understand the premise on bringing in an Arsenal attacker for 1 game week in isolation, but when it becomes down to a -4, I think we need to really weigh up what are these assets going to return. We need to remember that Arsenal played midweek. Now, some of the assets didn't actually play, like Saka, for example, but it may have a sort of toll on the team. Now, the one thing I will say is, those that have obviously been watching Arsenal, it's been a common trend that Arsenal have been flying out of the traps recently. You remember the games against Man United, for example, scoring in the first few minutes. I remember other games where they have been absolutely flying. And I do think in these sort of fixtures, and this goes for any team, and we've seen it historically over the years with the likes of Man City, if a team gets an early goal against teams like Nottingham Forest, who are basically there to, hit them on the counter or even pick up a 0-0 draw or a 1-1 draw, if they can get that early goal and continue the trend that they have been, I think this could be a big scoreline for Arsenal, because basically Nottingham Forest are going to have to do one of 2 things. Concede early and basically put their hands up and say, we're just going to protect ourselves here and not get battered, or they are going to go for a different strategy and try and get the goal, which they should go for, really. That's going to open up potential for Arsenal assets. So I absolutely agree that Arsenal assets are fantastic options this game week. However, at -4, you do need to really weigh it up, because they have Chelsea the following game week. So you do question, what are the returns going to be like over the next few? And I think Zaha at home, although he is the most frustrating FPL option on the planet, it is confirmed, I do think that Zaha has the potential for attacking returns here. Therefore, the Arsenal assets were probably looking at an 8-pointer, maybe a 10-pointer, to basically break even on the transfer that you're going for. If you deem an Arsenal asset as basically a 3-week hold before the World Cup, then yes, I think the -4 is more justifiable. But for a 1-game week in isolation, the player really needs to do some business on the pitch to kind of recoup the points difference that you have made. We need to remember, we're only focusing on the next 3 game weeks until unlimited transfers in the World Cup. So make sure you have that short-term sort of mindset when you are making your transfers. Probably saying Bowen to Saka or Foden. We're going to cover that in a minute because we are going to touch on some 3-game week punts on players. But it is worth noting, Bowen had an injury in the Europa League fixture. That's why he didn't play. So he could be an injury risk going into game week 14. Just forgot what game week we were in then. And Augustine, what a fantastic name. Sell Trossard for Saka or Almiron. And also start Botman or Anderson, have Gaeta and Trippier. Okay, so you're going to be doubling up either way defensively. I prefer the Newcastle defence, so I'm naturally going to say Botman as your option there. In terms of selling Trossard for Saka or Almiron, it absolutely has to be Saka if you have the funds available to you. There's no contest there between the two assets. And Immortal Technique, hope you're doing well, buddy. And Monkey Man saying, Haaland captain, then either Kane or Salah for vice captain. I would probably favour Salah. I think he has a higher FPL ceiling this game week. Okay, guys, so I see we have a lot more in the chat here, but I'm going to kind of move this live stream on just a little bit, move on to the next few slides, and we'll obviously come back to the chat and answer a few more here. So, as I mentioned, players to target for the next 3 game weeks. So before we dip into the actual physical players, I just want to quickly highlight this screen here for you, just to kind of give you a visual representation on the teams that we need to target based on fixtures. Because as I said, when we're bringing in players, we are basically looking for immediate returns. We're not looking to bring in players for 6-7 game weeks. We need those instant returns. And these are the sort of teams that we need to start focusing on when we are considering our moves. Now again, attacking players, defensive players, realistically, if you can, the attacking players should be the preference on your transfers, mainly because historically they do have the higher FPL ceiling, which means that you could score more points over this 3-week period than defenders. Now, of course, if you're bringing in an attacking defender who has clean sheets and attacking potential, then we are in the money there. But there hasn't been too many to talk about right now, unfortunately. So Man City, if you don't have triple Man City already, I think this game week, if not this game week 15 is a priority for you to have triple Man City. And as I said, with my team currently, I don't have triple Man City. I have Cancelo and Haaland. So I have the flexibility to either go for double defense or double attack. And I absolutely 100% think that if all managers are in the same situation, they should go for the attack option. At home, Man City are an absolute joke. They are averaging nearly 4 goals a game at home, and the 2 games that they have at home are some of the best hand-picked fixtures. Fulham at home and Brentford at home. A Brentford team that conceded 4 on the road against Aston Villa. I think it could be an absolute bloodbath in those last 2 fixtures. So again, Cancelo is the #1 defensive target. Haaland is obviously locked into everybody's team. And then it's a case of, can you reach for Kevin De Bruyne? If not, Phil Foden is an amazing option. And again, whereas years gone by, the question was, if money was no object, which midfielder will you go for? And every single player years gone by would say Kevin De Bruyne. But now we're seeing Phil Foden almost operating as a second forward in attacking phases. I would actually make the case that if they were exactly the same price, Phil Foden is much more closer than what it's been over the years. I still would probably just back Kevin De Bruyne, but at 4 million more expensive, I think Foden's the obvious move for value. Of course, if you're in a position where the 4 million saving isn't going to help the rest of your team, then I think you reach and you go for Kevin De Bruyne. But otherwise, Foden is an amazing option and a priority transfer for some managers this game week who I've spoke to already. Everton, Calvert-Lewin, I'm going to touch on him in a minute, so we're going to come back to Everton. But I think defensively, I'm not as sold. I think Fulham away is a tough fixture. Leicester always seem to be able to nick a goal, still a fantastic attacking team. And Bournemouth away can be a tricky fixture. So defensively, I don't think we need to invest in. Liverpool, I'm going to touch on those in a minute. But if you have Salah, I think you absolutely hold him for this game week. Could be question marks about the Tottenham game, but then you come back to the Southampton home game. Brilliant fixtures. West Ham, again, Scamacca is probably the only option I would consider now that Bowen has an injury. And Crystal Palace, I think, is an avoid right now. If you have Zaha, I think you can more than happy hold him. But I've seen a lot of managers wanting to sell him in game week 15, and I can't necessarily knock it because of the West Ham defensive underlying stats being so strong. I'm not going to touch on the defensive ones, guys, because you can see them there. And again, there isn't too much to talk about defensive assets because I think the priority is bringing in attacking options that have the higher FPL ceiling for us, as we're only focusing on these next 3 game weeks. But let me know in the chat, guys, what are your current thoughts on your transfer plans? Are you targeting any players here? Have you got Man City triple up? If you don't, who is the priority move for you? And also, are you going for a few punts? Now, segue in from punts, let's take a look at a few players that I think are absolutely on the radar for everybody going into game week 14. And while that's on screen, let's have a cup of coffee because I am needing it today. Okay, guys, so 4 players here who I think are right up there as some of the best transfers in, not only for this game week, but basically between now and the World Cup. So, unfortunately, I'm going to name a few players here that probably a lot of managers are thinking to themselves, oh, Nacho, these are such obvious picks, you know, but I think the common thread, the trend is in FPL sometimes is being different for the sake of being different. Now, you can see Saka and Foden on your screen there in the left columns there, comparing against one another. And I think there is a common trend right now in FPL that managers need to seek out the next golden boy, and you need to be completely different to the pack in order to make FPL gains. But this is very much a case of the bubble of FPL. Neither Foden or Saka are monumentally owned as it would seem in the Twitter community. I believe Foden is about 30%. I think Saka is very similar. So bringing in these players, don't feel like you're bringing them in and you're being a sheep and you're following the rest of the pack. These are still some of the best options available between now and game week 16. You could be chasing other assets, you could be going for them, but my thought process is this. Go for the proven players who are in fantastic form, who play for the best attacking teams. That is going to be your best route to attacker returns between now and the World Cup. And they don't come much better than Saka and Phil Foden. Now, you can see the underlying stats on the screen here, so I'm going to let you guys read those off. But you can see, basically, the first 3 are average stats per 90. So you can see expected FPL points for Foden, 5.57 compared to Saka's 5.06. But what I will say is both are very, very close in the underlying stats department. And because it's based per 90, we can get a real kind of understanding on how they perform against one another. Fixture-wise, I would say Saka does have the more favourable fixture in game week 14. But game weeks 15 and 16 is definitely in Phil Foden's favour. And while Foden has been performing better in the underlying stats department, it's actually Saka who is looking like the better option over the coming game weeks. Predicted points over the next 3, 14.8 compared to Phil Foden's 13.3. Now, I'm quite surprised by that actually, because Phil Foden, with those 2 home games to finish off, I think probably has the higher FPL ceiling than what Saka does, in particular with an away game against Chelsea. So I'm going to go slightly against the grain here on what we see on the screen, but I do still fancy Phil Foden as the priority transfer over Saka, even though Saka has the better predicted points. And it is worth mentioning as well, penalties are such an important factor in FPL, with Saka being on them and Foden not. That does add another string to Saka's bow that Foden doesn't necessarily carry, and that will carry some weight when we are considering our transfers. So let me know in the chat, guys, what your thoughts are. But again, I don't think we need to be kind of beyond crazy different. We've touched on the fixtures on screen here. Don't go too far away from these fixtures. Now, I know Arsenal aren't in the top 5 here for attacking fixtures, but still, we're looking at a team who are top 3 for expected goals. And with them having Nottingham Forest, first and foremost, is a fantastic fixture, but then a Wolves team who are managerless, kind of lost at sea right now, I think Saka is still a fantastic transfer for us to be targeting into our teams. Now for a few more differentials. Now, we touched on Phil Foden and we touched on Saka as more established assets and I don't think you're following the pack with those, but you're definitely going for more of a community trend. Calvert-Lewin and Darwin Núñez are for those managers that are wanting all action picks. Now, Darwin Núñez has a few more minutes for us to gauge some sort of conclusion on it, is worth noting. And you can see with his underlying stats, he is posting Haaland level numbers when he is getting game time on the field. 7.24 expected FPL points per 90 is absolutely outrageous. And 0.94 expected goals per 90 is exactly the same as Haaland. Now, of course, Haaland has played more minutes, so Haaland's numbers are a lot more sustainable and we can come to better conclusions. But what we are seeing with Darwin Núñez right now is when he is playing in this Liverpool team, everything is funneling through him and the chances are being converted and also being presented to him. And while he is looking a little bit erratic, he's looking all action, we want to go for those FPL options that are basically just chance, just magnets basically, and he is exactly that while he's on the field for Liverpool. Shots from the box as well, 5.79 per 90 is absolutely ridiculous. It is brilliant to see for an FPL option. When we have looked at the heat maps on previous videos, we have seen that he has been in and around that box predominantly. He isn't necessarily been coming into the midfield, similar to what we've seen with the likes of Firmino over the years, being the creative force. He is playing on the last man, making those long runs and getting himself in and around the box. And again, when we are looking at shots, I want to be seeing shots in the box rather than just general shots. I always come back to the likes of Maddison, for example, who has loads of shots, but all of them are taken out of the box, outside of the box mainly. For Darwin Núñez, I want to be seeing them taken in and around the box, and we are getting exactly that with these underlying stats. So this is fantastic reading if you are considering Darwin Núñez, and I think he is a brilliant differential if you are looking to climb the ranks over the coming game weeks. Calvert-Lewin, on the other hand, is somebody who kind of we need to take with a pinch of salt when we are looking at the underlying stats here. He's only played about 180 minutes of football so far this season. So although these are promising numbers, 4.76 expected FPL points per 90, an XG of 0.24 per 90, I really don't think that we can judge anything off this right now. And you can see that based on the next three predicted points. 5.6 really isn't good reading. We have to remember the Fantasy Football Fix algorithm predicts this based on underlying stats, on expected minutes. And right now, we just don't have that full clarity on Calvert-Lewin right now. I think if I had to put my money on it, I think Lampard now has the trust in Calvert-Lewin's fitness to start him. But I do think that if you are looking to bring him in as an FPL option, you always need to remember in the back of your mind that he hasn't been fully fit for a long, long time. An accumulation of games may flare up potential injuries for him, or Lampard may manage his minutes. So if you are looking to bring him into your teams, maybe just remember that risk could happen for him over the next 3 game weeks. But really, guys, if you're looking for a 3 game week punt in the front line, I don't think they come much better than Darwin Núñez. He is looking like an unbelievable option over the coming weeks. And let me know what your thoughts are on the chat, guys. Right. I'm going to leave that on the screen for you guys to check out. I'm going to dip into the chat now, answer a few more questions. Then we're going to come into the predicted points going into game week 14. This will help you out with particular transfers that you're focusing on, and also maybe some differential captains that you're looking for outside of Erling Haaland. So let's get back into this one. Carol Bugler is saying, Mitrovic to Núñez this week or Mitrovic to Scamacca next week? Well, Carol, I think basically what I've seen right now is Darwin Núñez, if you can bring him in, I think is a fantastic option. However, at the expense of Mitrovic this week doesn't really feel right. We're getting guaranteed minutes of Mitrovic on penalties, a decent home fixture. So while I think it will pay dividends over the next 3, I think you just need to accept that if you do sell Mitrovic, there is a solid chance that returns will come this week. Mitrovic-Scamacca feels more like a natural move because Mitrovic finishes the season with both Man City and Man United. So that feels like more of a natural exit point for him as an FPL option. But I'm not as excited by Scamacca as a move. So my kind of conclusion here is I prefer Mitrovic to Núñez if you can accept that there will probably be some returns for Mitrovic there. Mitrovic-Scamacca more of a natural move for him. What do you think of going Zaha to Saka and Tony to Jesus? I'm not big on that right now, I would have to admit. I love the Saka move, but Tony to Gabriel Jesus. Jesus is on one yellow card away from suspension. And Tony has a fantastic home fixture against Wolves, who have just conceded 4 goals in the last game week. For me, you have to stick with Tony, and therefore I would stick with the players that you currently have. Sean Williams, Mount for Saka or Rashford? I'm going to say Saka on this instance here, just because of the 1 game week in isolation. I think there's some real potential for returns there. Now, it's worth mentioning, I think Rashford is a little bit of a differential, and his big chances, his XG has been very, very good recently, but it is worth noting that I do think Saka is a much better move. Is the likes of a cheap... This is from Ema Masturbate. What a name that is. I got absolutely done there. That is top work. Is the likes of... Shocking. Is the likes of cheap Brentford defender worth running with 2 good defensive fixtures? Wolves and Forest ahead and benching them for City. Look, I think that it is an okay strategy, but my question to you is, can you be a bit more exciting? Can you go for those attacking upside moves? I think that is definitely the route to go for right now, rather than going for safer defensive options, because realistically, what are you getting from these Brentford defenders? Maybe a clean sheet, maybe a bonus point here and there. Otherwise, I just don't really see enough from Brentford to suggest that that is going to be a good enough transfer for your teams. Just covering off a few more questions here, guys. Benjamin, first question is from DKS. Raya or Edison? Very difficult one for me to answer this one, because basically money is kind of the thing that we need to discuss here. If you had the funds available to go for Edison, then absolutely Edison is the right move to go for. But Raya, with his fixtures coming up, I do think that he is still a solid pick. Brentford fixtures coming up: Wolves, Nottingham Forest and Man City. I think there's a potential for a clean sheet maybe there. The one thing I would say to you is, if you're looking to bring in a goalkeeper, I think Pickford's worth a consideration as well at that price point. But it's going to be all about what kind of money you have available to you. Benjamin saying, sorry I joined late. Is there a certainty for Haaland to start? And Benjamin, unfortunately, we have had no clarity on Pep Guardiola's press conference, whether he is going to be playing or not. The conclusion we have come to is, don't make any rash transfer decisions first and foremost, and try and get yourself on Twitter before the deadline. There are a few accounts out there. Tom dropped one in the chat a little bit earlier on, City Extra. Because Man City is the early deadline, because Man City is the early kickoff, sometimes we do get some early team news release before the deadline. So hopefully we'll get some clarification there about Haaland's situation then and there. So make sure you do get yourself in that kind of community there. Fornals to Iwobi or Gordon? Well, Iwobi and Gordon have been doing okay so far this season. I'm probably naturally going to be a bit more inclined to go for Gordon, just because his touch heat map is a little bit more advanced. Iwobi, though, has been in fantastic form. But no, I'd probably just favour Gordon and hope that he finds that form of last season. I feel like the transfer saga has kind of quietened a little bit, and I think it did affect Gordon. I think that he's now accepted where he is right now, and we're starting to see the better version of him. Jonas is saying, Andreas or Mount? Now, this is a very interesting one, because I would argue that Andreas has the better fixture, but I'm never at the thought process of benching a player at the price point of Mason Mount. So if you have Mason Mount, I would start him of the two. Logan, hope you're doing well. Cheekster, every expert has been saying Zaha's fixtures have looked great for weeks, but other than 1 game week, he's only returned more than 5 points once. Such a troll, in my opinion. This is absolutely correct from Cheekster here. Zaha is one of those players that this season, because the fixtures were so good long term, there was never a correct there was never a correct exit point for Zaha. So it did feel like you kind of had to have him between then and the World Cup, because each fixture after the next was better and better and better. And you always felt to yourself, Zaha will eventually return for me. He will do it. But he just hasn't really clicked so far this season. But again, I think personally, I'm going to fall into that trap of continuing to hold him, in particular for that Southampton game at home. Arjun saying, hi Tom, I imagine he's chatting to Tom in the chat, but I'll try and answer this one, mate. No Liverpool exposure for this game week. My front line has Kane, Haaland and Tony with 0.4 million in the bank. Should I take a punt on Darwin/Firmino or do a -4 for Salah? The Leeds fixture is juicy. And I absolutely agree. Liverpool this game week are fantastic differentials. That's why I'm licking my lips a little bit at having both Trent and Mohamed Salah. Would I sell any of that front line this game week? No, I would not for Darwin Núñez. While I do think Darwin Núñez is a fantastic option this week, I think that the players you have right now offer fantastic potential as well. And again, when you are looking at the -4 for Mo Salah, it's going to be about who you are selling. And usually there isn't many players that you would sell and bring in that will recoup the -4 that you are doing. Do you think the 3-5-2 is the formation at the moment? I think it probably has been because the big at the back hasn't really worked for managers so far this season. So I think 3-5-2 or the 3-4-3 has been a formation that has worked out for a lot of successful managers so far this season. Yacino saying players that have got themselves to prove for the World Cup. Yeah, I think that's a viable argument there. And Carol Bugler saying, will Ben White be less of an option if Gabriel is out, as he should move to centre-back? Yeah, I think that's a viable suggestion as well. I think Ben White will naturally be the replacement for Gabriel if he has picked up a knock from the Europa League match. Hopefully we get a bit more information on that. I personally don't know what the status is on Gabriel. And naturally, I think that will lessen the Ben White attacking returns. But we need to remember they weren't as frequent as other players like Trent's, for example. But he was getting up that line and picking up returns. But I think Ben White is still the better option in that defence. We need to remember Saliba is 1 yellow card away from suspension. And I would say take out Salah and Zaha for Foden and De Bruyne. I would not do that this game week. I would see no situation where I would sell Mohamed Salah this week with that brilliant fixture. What about Foden, KDB and Haaland and drop Cancelo? Yeah, I think if you want to go all in, because Man City are prone to leaking really suspect goals right now. So if you want to go all in on the triple up, I could not knock anybody for doing that right now. Again, guys, if you can like the stream, that'd be massively appreciated. We're at 34 likes right now, and we always do try and smash 50 likes each stream. If you can do that, be massively appreciated if it has offered you some value so far. And again, if you are new around here, you're enjoying the stuff, it'd be great if you could consider hitting that subscribe button. We are dropping daily content, and it'd be awesome to have you guys along the journey so far this season. I'm chilling saying DCL is a good differential. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think DCL is a fantastic differential. We just need to remember that we haven't got too much information right now to judge off how he is going to perform over the coming game weeks. Guys, I see the comments in the chat. I'm absolutely going to come back to those, but I just want to change the screen right now because I want to bring up the predicted points going into game week 14. This is going to be fantastic because we break this down based on positions, top 5, you get a real idea on which players are anticipated to do well this game week. So let's get that for you guys. Okay, so here we have it here. Goalkeepers wise, always familiar faces with the likes of Alisson, with the likes of Ramsdale, for example. So not too much to discuss on here. This is just a brilliant slide for you guys to kind of read off and get any sort of confirmation bias that you did want. A big absentee in the predicted points right now is going to be Erling Haaland. Now, our algorithm has based his predicted points on him effectively going to be a risk for this game week. So naturally, his predicted points are going to be a lot less than what they usually are. Otherwise, he would be right up there in the forward department. But if you are in the market for Darwin Núñez, he's looking great in the forward line. But Mohamed Salah is the man based on our algorithm. If you are trying to bring in a player for a captain, Mohamed Salah is absolutely the man. And I do think if they go for that similar structure that they had in the Champions League of Mohamed Salah alongside Darwin Núñez with a Firmino, a creative force behind him, that could really pay dividends as Mohamed Salah for this game week. So guys, if you're looking for a differential captain, the way I'd rank him right now is Mo Salah number 1. I would have Kevin De Bruyne number 2, and then I would go for a likes of a Harry Kane number 3. I think Harry Kane ticking over so nicely. Any other season, he would be in every single team. I believe it's only one game that he hasn't scored in, maybe 2 so far. The big thing that's going against Harry Kane is he isn't hitting those big double-digit hauls. He's getting that goal, he's getting that bonus point, and he isn't getting that additional assist or goal, which we saw over the years with him combining with Son. So I still think Salah is the route to go for if you are trying to bring in another premium into your team. So guys, I'm going to leave that on the screen for you here because I think it's a brilliant slide for you just to kind of read off while I touch on some more questions in the chat. We're going to try and go for another 15 minutes. So if you have anything that you want to discuss, get it in the chat or try and answer it between now and around 6:30. And again, guys, if you can, drop a like on the live stream to show you've enjoyed it. That would be massively appreciated. We're 9 likes away from 50. If we can get that in the next few minutes, that would be really, really awesome. So let's get to it, guys. Let's answer some more of the questions that you guys have asked. Could Pep rest Foden with the World Cup in mind? Mahrez doesn't have the World Cup yet. So, Neil, it's a really good question there. And personally, I don't think Pep gives a crap about the World Cup personally. I think Pep Guardiola is completely focused on Man City. And I think all managers are going to be in that same mindset personally. While the players' fitness and general well-being is always going to be the priority of both the team and the manager, I really don't think that Pep Guardiola is going to think, you know what, let's give Foden the week off because he needs to be fresh for that England game. I think it would be a great mindset to have, but I think it isn't something I can imagine Pep Guardiola thinking about. And the fact that Foden was rested in game week 13 makes me think that Foden is going to be a viable option between now and the World Cup. So for those that have Foden, I think you're pretty golden in terms of the game time coming up. FPL Popo saying, would you do Mitrovic to Nunes for a -4? Just to have a differential, because I think Liverpool will smash Leeds with a big scoreline. Yeah, so this all comes down to your kind of gut feeling, because I never want to put someone off a punt that they have a real gut feeling for. Now, Liverpool are such an unpredictable beast so far this season. It was inevitable they were going to beat Ajax in the Champions League off the back of losing against Nottingham Forest. And we've seen this week in, week out with Liverpool so far this season. They've gone and beat Bournemouth 9-0, and we thought to ourselves, Liverpool back. Then I believe they drew or lost after that. They then go and beat Man City, and we think to ourselves, finally, Liverpool found the formula to get back to where they were last season, and they lose to Nottingham Forest. They've now had a big win against Ajax. I can't tell you what's going to happen against Leeds here. On the face of it, yes, I agree that it is going to be a decent and handsome win for Liverpool, but realistically, I've kind of given up anticipating what kind of Liverpool is going to return. The one thing I would say is the return of Thiago, I think, is really promising for them from an attacking perspective. So to answer your question, if you're at the mindset that Nunes is going to go really big between now and the World Cup, then I think the -4 is okay. But just remember that Mitrovic has been one of the best value players in the game so far, and his home record's been really, really solid. So just be cautious of that. I think Mitrovic out for a -4 is always going to be a risky business. And because of that, I'm probably not going to suggest you do that. But of course, if you're in the sort of knowledge that he's going to go big, then who's for me to say not to do it? Can you stop swallowing a gulp? Sorry, don't mean to be rude, but it's very no. Yeah, that's an absolute valid comment. And honestly, guys, those sort of ones are fantastic to hear because for me, presenting these sort of things, I always want to get better and better. So I'd rather you guys say that rather than kind of think to yourself, oh, I'm not going to tune into the next live stream because he does that. Those sort of things for me is always a fantastic thing to hear because it hopefully means that over the next one you're going to tune in, those little things will change and it'll make it a better experience for you guys. So thank you very much for raising that. And I would highly recommend anybody raising that in future ones just because it will improve the experience. Obviously things that can't change like the giant head, things like that, those things are here to stay, but you know, we can change other things in this live stream. Aaron Nathan saying Jesus to Darwin. No, I cannot suggest that because Jesus is a fantastic option this week. Randeep, sell Zaha for Saka this week. We've covered that one. I think it is a justifiable move, but Zaha at home is a decent fixture. Sean Williams, should I sell Mount for Saka? Or I've covered that one off for you, buddy. I'm not reading your name again because you've done me earlier. All I'm saying is you end in beta. Jake French, Rashford and Zaha or Almiron and Foden. Because the Man City fixture has been so good, I'm going to have to say Almiron and Foden for you to get a little bit of investment in the Man City attack. FPL Zaha, will Doherty start? Unfortunately, I just couldn't confidently tell you whether he is going to start or not. Again, there are some fantastic accounts online which kind of suggest some sort of predictions. I believe a guy called Paul O'Keefe does like a predict Conte team. That might be worth checking out, but unfortunately I just couldn't tell you whether Doherty starts or not. Sell Zaha or Almiron. Sell Zaha for Almiron. I'm not big on that move personally. Sell Henderson for Raya. I don't think that really offers much value. I think I'd rather roll my transfer, to be honest with you, and have flexibility in the following game week to make attacking moves rather than a goalkeeper move. Because we need to remember as well, we are looking at such a small time frame between now and the World Cup. We need to go for players that are really going to be returning big, and that just doesn't feel like a big returner in terms of transfers. Erling Haaland. What's Erling Haaland? If that is the real you, tell us your injury status right now. We need to know it. Rashford or Zaha as a Bowen replacement? You know what? Zaha, such an absolute troll in the game. I'm probably going to suggest Rashford as a bit of a differential. Aaron Nathan, I want to take out Perisic. I already have 3 City and Arsenal players though. Okay, so if you're looking to take out Perisic, you guys won't be able to see this on the screen, but I'm just going to bring up the predicted points between now and the World Cup. Now, if you can get to someone like Van Dijk, he is posing really good on our predicted points because he has guaranteed game time and 2 fantastic home fixtures. So I like Van Dijk, and he does offer attacking potential from set pieces. Outside of that, my question to you is, do you have Trippier? I think he's still a good option. Otherwise, we come down to other options. Now, you said that you already had 3 City and 3 Arsenal. So 3 City, 3 Arsenal. I think Van Dijk's the answer there if you can reach that far. Otherwise, predicted points wise, there isn't many else that I can suggest for you to go for. Dyer, but not too exciting. Just trying to cover off as many questions as we can, guys. Don't you think Everton have improved defensively, so Mitrovic might blank and Nunez might smash against Elite? Yeah, I absolutely agree. And this comes back to it. If your gut feeling tells you that Nunez is going to go huge, I don't want to be the one to convince you not. Darwin Nunez looks good on the projected points. Is he 4 points difference because you're talking about a points hit? Then that's the question mark right now. Never give up FPL is saying smash the like button. I really do appreciate that, buddy. Diego saying, if you have Firmino, do you keep or sell? I think if I had Firmino this week, firstly, it comes back to the question, does rolling my free transfer into game week 15 make my team look better? If that's the case, I think you start Firmino. Could I sit here and confidently tell that he starts? No, I couldn't. So then it comes down to your gut feeling about, does he get suitable game time for you to keep? If you're in the camp that he's going to get rotated, I would look to sell him. And I would say to you, first and foremost, do you go sideways to Darwin Nunez? I think he's a much better Liverpool option. Secondly, do you go to a bit more of a differential? Do you go Calvert-Lewin? That one doesn't get me too excited. So then it comes back to the thing, can you roll your free transfer, have more flexibility in the rest of your team? I probably would keep Firmino personally. How do you guys feel about Zaha to Salah and Tony to Fodder? Not big on that. Yes, you are getting Mo Salah, and he could, in his own right, absolutely bang this game week and kind of justify the transfer move. But you are selling Tony, a Brentford team who are a different animal at home compared to away. I think that Tony for this game week is a really good option to keep. Would you do Salah to Saka and Mitchell to Darwin? No, I would not. I think Salah is a fantastic option this game week. Do you feel Shaw can be a better choice than Dalot since Shaw is now preferred the last 3 Premier Leagues plus some Europa? Yeah, I think Shaw is a fantastic option as well. But I think I don't know the price point right now of Luke Shaw. Let me just get that up. So Luke Shaw is currently 4.7. Dalot is 4.7. So both are the exact same. So look, I think you just flip a coin with those two. I think both play every game between now and the World Cup. So look, I think both are not necessarily offering much attacking wise. You're going to get yourself investment in the Man United defence. I don't think there's much difference between the two personally. Not enough for you to get a sweat on about it. Neil saying no Kepa. That's a really good point. Based on what we've seen right now, Kepa has been basically the reason why a lot of Chelsea results have gone the way they have. Underlying defensive wise, Chelsea haven't been the best team. And that's the only reason why I can anticipate Kepa not being in the predicted points for this game week. If I just bring it up on screen for myself, I can read it out for you guys. Kepa is predicted to score this game week. He isn't even on the screen, which is a little bit weird. Hang on a second. Give me 2 seconds here. I'm not sure why, but Kepa isn't coming up on our predicted points here. So what I will do, I will find out why that is and get back to you on that one, because it's a little bit suspect why he isn't on there. So I will check in on that one for you. Right, let's cover off some more questions, guys. Cancelo and Skamaka to Gabriel and Darwin. No, I will not do that move. Main reason being is we don't know the injury status on Gabriel right now. He was limping after the game. I can't sit here and suggest to bring in a player that could be an injury risk for that game. Nunes or Salah captain? I would go for Salah captaincy. We need to remember when we compare a midfielder versus a forward, Haaland is the exception. An extra point for a clean sheet and an extra point for a goal is massive when we are considering captaincies. Thoughts on Iwobi? Iwobi's ticking over nicely. Is he going to be the big returner that you want between now and the World Cup? I don't think so. I think he's in a great purple patch right now, but I don't think I would be ripping up my team to be bringing him in. Just covered off a few more, guys. Rashford or Zaha as a Bowen replacement? I've covered that. I'll go for Rashford. Who would you place first on your bench, Nacho? Bailey or Guy? That's a really, really tough one. Naturally, I think I'm always going to be inclined to go for the attacking option in Aston Villa's Bailly. Now, the big problem is right now with with Leon Bailey is this. New manager at the helm. Is he going to be in his starting 11? That is going to be a big question right now, because right now, Mark Guy, home fixture, getting guaranteed game time. With Leon Bailey, you really don't know whether he is going to definitely feature or not. Now, the fixture for Aston Villa is, let me just remind myself here, away against a Newcastle team who are performing very well defensively. So I probably would go for Mark Guy just to get some Crystal Palace investment with that decent home fixture against Southampton. The one thing I would say is Leon Bailey is always going to be an FPL troll, because done really well last week with Gerrard getting sacked, but now with Unai Emery coming into the team, does he favour him? Because of that, I think I'm just going to say Mark Guy, just because we don't have any understanding whether Leon Bailey is an integral part of Unai Emery's system. And again, I would look at the projected points, but they haven't really accounted for a new manager. And I think that's why I don't really want to be suggesting that right now. Challenger 8 saying, should I sell Bowen for Saka, or should I do Bowen to Almiron and Mitro to Darwin? I think I'll just do Bowen to Saka and get that move done rather than doing the other move that you are suggesting right now. Jimmy saying, sell Maddison this week for Rashford or Almiron, or bench him and play Andreas. I'll tell you what, if I had Maddison, I'd probably just start him. Man City are conceding really, really scrappy goals. And it's a game where I could see Maddison scoring in this fixture. If you're looking to sell him, I couldn't be benching Maddison. You either sell him or you start him. Otherwise, Rashford's an okay move. But I would say to you, is there other moves that you can make in your team? Who the vice captain? I think Salah is the vice captain for me. Foden or Tony as vice captain? I would go for Foden as vice captain. Who's the best sub 6 million striker for 15 and 16? Solanke, I can never pronounce Nottingham Forest one, Daka or Edouard. Firstly, I can't really say concrete whether Daka is a guaranteed game time or not. So because of that, I can't really suggest Daka as an option. Projected points wise, between 15 and 16, I can get them up for you now. Obviously, this won't come up on the screen, guys, but I can read them out in my lovely southwestern tones for you. So 6 million or below, the answer is going to be Solanke. Now, the fixtures-wise, it's worth noting, he did come off of an injury against West Ham, but the anticipation that he will be back for game week 15. And Solanke has Leeds away and Everton at home. I think they are more than fine fixtures for Dominic Solanke and Bournemouth. So, yeah, the answer is going to be Solanke there. Again, nobody is going to be exciting, though, in that period. FPL Zaha, we use Opta for that one. Rishav saying top 5 picks solely for this week. Well, you can see that on the screen there. Basically, based on our projected points, it would be Mo Salah, we'd have Gabriel Jesus, we'd have Martinelli, we'd have Saka, we'd have Darwin Núñez, and we would have Harry Kane as the real top picks. And you can see that on screen there. You want to basically pick the ones that have the highest predicted points for this game week. Tony has 5 goals and 33 points in home games this season. Great point by Cheekster there. Tom's putting the predicted points there for Kepa. Thank you very much for that, thank you very much for that, Kepa. Thank you very much for that, Tom. Cheekster, thanks for another useful live stream, FPL Nacho. Thanks for tuning in, Cheekster. Always and ever present. Much do appreciate you being in the chat. Wanderlust, is Haaland expected to play? Unfortunately, I don't have the news on that one there. The most recent press conference has said that they are going to check on him over the next few hours, which would have been this afternoon, and they will make a decision then and there on him. As I've said to a lot of people right now, try and get yourself on the Twitter community before the deadline. There are usually some team leaks, and of course with Man City being the early kickoff, we will hopefully get some sort of concrete evidence about Man City. So that is my advice right now in regards to Erling Haaland. Should I start Solanke or Bowen? Look, both are injury risks for this game week, so I would definitely be struggling to suggest one there. I would say, have you got anyone else that you could start? Because both are injury risks. Probably start Bowen as I think he's the better option this week, if he was to start. Emery not in charge yet for Villa. Bailey should play, but maybe limited return. Yeah, that's a good point there. I didn't realise that Unai Emery actually hasn't taken a training session yet. I do apologise. So, yeah, I would probably say that I would still go for the defensive move there. I'll admit I haven't paid much attention to Chelsea recently. Is Mendy? No, Kepa is number 1 right now. Basically because Graham Potter really does like to have his goalkeeper playing out from the back. And Mendy, if you have watched him over the recent years, Mendy is an accident waiting to happen. He's cost us a lot of points trying to play out from the back. While a fantastic shot stopper, hasn't been the best from playing out from the back. He is definitely fancying fancying Kepa over him. Sujay, Harry, hope you're doing well, buddy. Sujay saying Gabriel for Joe Gomez, or roll the transfer, or Saka for Zaha if I need to do one. I like the Zaha to Saka move, but I think can you roll your free transfer and have more flexibility in the next game week is the route that I would suggest most probably. Right, guys, I said that I had a hard deadline of 6:30, and I'm going to have to stick to that. I do apologise. Thank you so much for tuning into this live stream, guys. It's been massively appreciated. And as always, you guys have delivered on the likes on the live stream. 55 likes is another fantastic stream. So I really do appreciate that, guys. Yeah, Saturday deadline, 11 a.m. UK time. So obviously that is going to be different to where you are in the world. So make sure you are tuned into that deadline and you do not miss it this game week. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. It has been a fantastic live stream. I hope it has provided some value to you guys. Once again, if you did enjoy it, show your appreciation and drop a like on the live stream. And if you enjoyed what you saw, make sure you do hit the subscribe button. It'd be great to see some familiar faces come back on the next live stream. We do this every Friday for an hour or so, and we try and cover off all of the hot topics. I've seen some new faces in the chat, and I really do hope to see you guys in the next live stream. So guys, that's all it leaves me to say is have a fantastic weekend. Have a brilliant FPL week. More importantly, get that green arrow, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys. See you soon. Cheers.